All right. So, well, congratulations, you submitted your assessment, the first one in this trimester, which is great. And the next thing I'd like to discuss with you is the feedback, okay? The feedback is basically, as mentioned to you before, please give feedback to your friends who have not received feedback or who have received less feedback, okay? I do not want to organize, you give feedback to this person and so on and so forth, you guys decide. I'm happy with that, okay? Now, in terms of giving feedback, make sure that we are specific in our feedback, okay? Examples, you can give examples, okay? You can give examples, okay? Examples such as, specific comments that your friends are making to support your argument, okay? And make sure you focus on the facts and also relate to the theory or concepts, okay? So they are, in general, the ones that you want to look at, okay? Make sure you look at positive as well as the constructive feedback, okay? Now, how do we do that? The first one is the positive feedback. Look at the positive sides, the achievements of the paper has shown or has demonstrated. And the next one is this is the sandwich feedback I mentioned in my announcements. Okay, the first one is the bun, the top bun, and which is the positive one. Explain the achievement. Yeah, you have done this, you have done that. Okay, and the next one is the meat or the constructive feedback. This is where you explain your constructive feedback. You explain the your recommendation as well. Okay, and you want to look at this and that, for instance. And last one is your another positive one, which is basically showing your encouragement. Okay, you encourage, yeah, I'm confident you can do that. Okay, any other encouragements. Okay, you've done a lot of things in here, you've done a lot of work, so that should be whatever you want to claim. Okay, right. So basically, they are the ones that I'd like to recommend. Any questions in terms of giving feedback?
I've got a quick one. Sorry, Eddie. What if you notice that there's another student that has had feedback, but you perhaps want to balance that feedback for that other peer that's in the group? Even though that they've had some feedback, I know you want us to sort of look at having feedback from people that hasn't had a lot. There is one that I've actually specifically got in mind, and I really would like to do that. I think that the feedback given,
yep,
perhaps is a little harsh, and I just would love to encourage that person.
Right. Okay. If I'm not mistaken, what you're asking me is basically, what about if you have someone in mind that you want to give feedback? Would that be okay? Yes, that would be okay.
Yeah, just they've already received feedback from another student or another peer. I just kind of, Tracy, correct, like counter feedback, just to encourage that other peer student and to bring a balanced view for them, rather than, I kind of felt that one of the feedbacks was really harsh, that's all. Right,
okay. Your focus is basically the papers that you're giving feedback, and if you have disagreement for the other person giving feedback, go for it, but please remember your main task is to the main paper.
No, I definitely will be doing that. I think at one point it just said, please don't mark this, it doesn't even deserve to be marked, and I'm like, wow, that's just not really constructive at all. It's not constructive at all. The poor person on the other side must be going, what the hell? So I really felt for that person and just went, wow.
I haven't checked that. I haven't checked the discussion forum because I was just, leaving it to sometimes, especially in online, I'll leave it to the students to have that discussion, and after that, I jump in basically. But thanks for bringing this to me. Look, people have different style in terms of giving feedback, and look, feel free to give comment as well. That is fine. I'm happy with that.
Okay, so Tracy's question that she's got there about can you focus on two for the assessment and then make little comments on the other ones, we're able to do that. Thanks for the question, Trace, by the way.
When you say to focus on 2 for the assessments, does it mean you're giving feedback for 2 papers? I think you are required to give feedback for 2 papers.
Yeah, 2 people, but if I'm understanding Tracy's question, she's saying, can we do those 2 to satisfy the assessment? But are we allowed to then go and say little things to other people, like just little comments? Is that right, Tracy? Is that what you're saying?
Okay.
Cool.
Right. Yes, I think this is the same question that you raised before. Yes, you can. Let's say we are talking about paper A, and John gave harsh feedback to that paper, and you, let's say Tracy wants to give feedback to paper A as well, and at the same time, Tracy also mentioned about John's feedback, while you're too harsh. I think you're not encouraging, and so on and so forth. Yes, look, that's fine.
If I'm that's not how I'm sort of understand. Sorry, Eddie. That's not how I'm understanding it. So Tracy, correct me, jump in if I'm off the track here. But so basically, what's being asked is we go and give feedback on paper A, and we give feedback on paper B. Mm-hmm. But paper C over here, they did a great job, and so we just want to say, hey, well done. That's it.
Right. Well, if that's the case, then why don't you give feedback to paper A and C?
Okay, so you don't want us doing little comments to other people then, clearly. You just want us to do it, and that's it.
Yeah, exactly. The reason for that is a few reasons. First, you only have 250 words. If you think about it, giving feedback for 2 papers in 250 words, kind of, limited. And second, you do not want to be distracted, okay? It's like when I talk to you, I give you feedback, and suddenly I talk to Tracy.
Yeah. Okay. So Trace, maybe what we do, if I'm understanding your question, sweetie, maybe we should just go into the general discussion area and maybe send a class message or something. Say, hey, your paper was awesome, or something like that. Really encouraged. Or would that be fine, Eddie?
That will be fine. Your paper is awesome. That's fine. But that will not go to your assessment.
Yeah. Cool. No worries. Got it. Thanks, guys.
Okay. Any more questions about giving feedback? All good? Brilliant. Now let's move on, and hopefully this gives you a bit of illustration in terms of how we can give feedback to the others. And yeah, look, I tried to help you, giving you some hints in terms of uploading your feedback. Okay. Now this topic is actually about marketing research and also consumer behavior, as discussed before. Okay. Now, in today's business landscape, you will find that actually marketing managers receive a lot of information. Okay. In the olden days, when I started my career in marketing, I feel like I'm getting older actually when I talk about it. Always. Okay. And I said to my juniors recently, look, you guys are happy. You guys are lucky because you have lots of information. Unlike, when I started my career, I was struggling to get information. Therefore, I put a lot of research dollars into my plan actually. But anyway, now today's marketing landscape, especially driven by digital technologies, marketers receive a lot of information. Okay, you can imagine that consumers may talk to the companies through salespeople, for instance. They may send emails, they may have inquiries, and so on and so forth. Okay, so that will be recorded in what we call a CRM system, customer relationship management system. Okay, and strong organizations should record that kind of information for future purpose. Okay, but that is another dilemma that we face in today's business landscape, because we have what we call as big data. If you type in a Google search box, you will be able to find tons of articles about big data. That also leads us to what we call as data mining. Okay, because the data that marketers face are just enormous. Imagine that every customer touch point can generate information for marketers. Okay, right. So that's a brief introduction in terms of today's marketing landscape in relations to research. Okay. Now let me check that. Oh, okay. Oh, fantastic, Tracy. Now, the other thing I'd like to highlight is you may recall that in the previous topic we discussed about how marketing organizations interact with the customers, and actually we also interact with the other people as well. Now, every single thing in there can be researched. Okay, we can research the customers, we can research our marketing intermediaries, we can research the competitors, and we can research all other things. Right? The question is, how do we use this information? Now, in business, we say that we use information because we want to make decision. Okay, we want to make decision, and the decision that we are making should be quality decision. Okay, therefore we use information. Okay, sometimes the information is available, sometimes they are not available. Okay, so that's how we do research. Okay, so please put that in mind. We don't do research because we have put it in the budget. Okay, we have put the dollars in our marketing budgets, but we do research because we want to make decision. Okay, quality decision. Okay. Okay. Now this is a brief information about the marketing information system, which is basically that consists of people, equipment, procedures to gather, sort, analyze, and so on and so forth. And also that also includes the term distributing the information for decision making. Okay, and actually in terms of information, the other thing I'd like to highlight is marketers actually need good information, not a lot of information. Okay, we do need good information or relevant information. Otherwise, it's hard for us to make a good decision. Okay. This one here is briefly about the steps in terms of how a marketing manager undertakes the marketing information system. The first thing that they do is to assess the needs, source the information, analyze and interpret the information, and distribute the information to relevant stakeholders such as the management team, the R&D team, and so on and so forth. Okay, so we can make a collective decision about the problem that we are facing. Okay. How do we use the information? Well, a number of things, including the identifying potential existing customers. Okay, this one here is quite critical. Now, we are going to discuss strategic marketing. I believe it will be in the next topic. Therefore, I have posted in the discussion forum. I've posted several video clips for discussion actually. And understanding the customers would be the strategic decision, and we can also do some research to understand who our potential customers are and who our existing customers are. Well, probably they are not the same thing. Okay, they are not the same group of customers. Okay, highlight the opportunities and threats. Okay, your assessment one actually includes a few things: the marketing concepts and also the marketing environment. The marketing environment research helps us to reveal the opportunities and threats. Okay, for us to outline the future direction of the company. We can also do some research to design marketing mix. Definitely. Okay, what product that we want to offer, at what price, and so on and so forth. And highlight changes in technology or customer choices, okay, and competitor changes. Okay. Now, in terms of competitor changes, we can do we can do a number of things in terms of researching our competitors. We can look at analyze their offering, the marketing mix variables. We can also analyze how the customers perceive the competitors' brands, okay, as well as our brand. So now, please familiarize yourself with this term, the perception in the consumer's mind, because that will be discussed in the strategic marketing as well. Okay. Okay. Now, a number of information, number of sources of information that we can use in terms of trying to find the answer of the problem. The first one is the internal records. Okay. Now, the internal records in here are basically we have it in our organization. We have it. Okay. Give examples of internal records, guys. What are the examples? Okay, I got a chat box in here. Invoices, fair enough. Invoices is one of the internal. Okay. Now, invoices gives us an understanding of our financial record. Okay. Financial record in here includes sales and profit. Okay. From the invoices, we can generate sales and profit reports. Okay. So that is internal. Okay. We can also look at customer complaint, for instance. Okay. Product demand too. Yes, that's correct, Tracy. Product demands too, right? There are sales order, for instance. Okay, customer complaints. Okay, customer feedback, such as, hey, I like that one, fantastic, good job. Okay, who is the marketer? Well, send my regards to the marketers. That one is good job. Okay, customer feedback. Okay, and so on and so forth. Okay, so that's part of internal records. Okay, now the other thing that I've also mentioned is CRM, customer relationship management. Okay, customer relationship management. Okay. That gives us some insight as well in terms of internal records. Okay. The next one is marketing intelligence. Now, marketing intelligence in here, we use it to understand our competitors. Okay, we use it to understand our competitors. Okay, how does it work? Well, a number of things that we can do to understand the competitors' information. The first one is to review their marketing mix variables. Okay, you look at the campaign, you look at the product, you analyze the price, you look at how they distribute the product, and you look at a number of things as well. Okay, and that helps you to generate what promise that they try to deliver for the customers. Okay, and then you can also attend exhibition, for instance. Okay, you attend exhibition and look at the announcement that they're making. Okay, that leads me to media announcement. Okay, that leads me to media announcement. Okay, look, a few years ago, Steve Jobs announced, at that time he announced that he was terminally ill. Okay, and at that time, Apple's share price dipped. At a time because they're expecting Steve to keep navigating the company. Okay, and the stock analysts at that time were waiting for the announcement from the company. Who would be replacing Steve? Okay, would they take someone from the external company, or would they groom someone to step up to that role? Okay, and finally they announced Tim Cook at a time, and stock analysts was stable again. Now, that is one of the things that you also need to look at in terms of analyzing competitors. Okay, that includes the announcements that they make. Okay, the annual general meeting that they make. Okay, that gives us some insights. Okay, about our competitors. Of course, you can look at their websites definitely. Okay, so there are sources of information in terms of marketing intelligence. Okay, now the third source of information is market research. Okay, this is the one that we need to conduct after the first two sources cannot help us solving the problem. Okay, look, out of these three sources, okay, my recommendation for you is to look at this one first. Okay, to look at your internal record. Okay. In fact, in many cases, the internal records help us to understand what is the problem here. Okay, and then you look at the external reports such as the marketing intelligence, and finally you decide doing marketing research. Okay, all right. So as mentioned to you before, a lot of things can be answered internally through internal records. In fact, one of the things that you also need to look at is your sales records, for instance, to understand whether they are in the right direction or not. Okay. Now Tracy has placed a comment here in the chat box. That is actually an insightful. I'd like to elaborate that further. Now, as Tracy also mentioned, product filing, for instance, I just want to highlight to you, if you look at your financial record, your sales and profit records, okay, that may give you some understanding in terms of where the problems are. Okay. So before you go to your marketing research agencies, right, look at the internal report, right? Look at your sales trend, look at sales by product, sales by area, and so on and so forth. And that helps you to understand it. That helps you to understand a little bit of it, all right, or part of the problem. Okay. Remember, we conduct research not because we have put the research budget, but we conduct research because we want to get the information to make good decision. Okay, the decision that we're making could be around understanding more opportunities. Okay, or understanding the answers of the problem. Okay, so the second one here is as Tracy mentioned, when we are having problem. Let's say our sales didn't achieve, we didn't achieve the sales target, and so on and so forth for the last few months. That gives us some, a bit of headache. Okay, or if our sales is always over the roof. Okay, certain products in our portfolio may do a good job. Okay, well, we may be able to reveal more opportunities. Right, therefore we do research to find out more opportunities with these products. Okay, with this business. Yeah. Okay. It is starting point for you to rethink the entire strategy. You're correct, Tracy. It is a starting point for you to rethink about the entire portfolio. Okay, so if your business is not doing that well, that is actually one thing that you can also consider doing that research for you to help understanding it. Okay. Okay, this is a bit of details in terms of the sources of information as discussed before. Okay, now in terms of types of information, there are two types of information. The first one is primary, and the second one is secondary. Okay, this is based on who collected the information. All right, the primary data is actually collected to address specific problem. Okay, so it is customized to specific marketing problem. Okay, customized to a specific marketing problem. Okay, now the second one is secondary data. Okay, the data is actually generated through other research. Okay, or their research for a different purpose. Okay, so in other words, it has been established. The data has been established somewhere, right? Either internally or externally. Therefore, we have two types of secondary data: internal and external. Okay, the internal data, examples of internal data includes the sales report that we just discussed. Okay. And external data includes the Austrian Bureau of Statistics or websites and so on and so forth that the other organizations produce, right? The other characteristics of internal is, of secondary data is that one is relatively cheap, right? Relatively quite cheap. In fact, in many cases, it may be available for us for free. We just need to have the internet connection, okay? When we research the economic data, like the one I showed you last week, or when we research the Austrian Bureau of Statistics data, for instance, that gives us, some information, and that is for free. Okay, now that one is quite expensive. Okay, the primary data is quite expensive. On the other hand, primary data is very, very expensive. Okay, the research I conducted one of my previous jobs, for instance, costed us $75,000. By any company standards, either large, medium, or small, it is expensive. Okay, question: when it comes to research, which one that we need to research first, the secondary data that we research, or the primary data that we research first? Okay, we got secondary. All right, fair enough. Secondary. How do others think? Secondary or primary first? Any thoughts?
I want to say primary, because that's where the target market is, and then match it up with the secondary data.
Right. Okay, fair enough. Any other thoughts, guys? Primary, secondary. Okay. Tracy, why primary? Why secondary? Any reasons why secondary?
Yeah, cool.
Okay, all right. She's typing it. Okay, and then, all right, okay. Right, good one. That is good one. Okay, so yes, we do secondary first. Okay, the reason why secondary first, there are a number of reasons why secondary first. Okay, there are a number of reasons. First, well, it is cheap. Okay, before we spend the research dollar, let's use whatever we can. All right, so that's the reason number one. All right, it is cheaper, much cheaper. All right. Second, part of the problem, we may be able to answer part of the problem. Okay, after we conduct the secondary research, we may be able to answer part of the problem. Therefore, we can generate a higher level primary research. Okay, so before we spend the research dollars, before we call the research agencies, make sure that we conduct the secondary data analysis before we call them. Okay, because that helps us understanding where the problems are. Okay, and that helps us answering part of the problem so that we can elevate the problem to the next level, the more detailed one. Okay, right, and let's. Any more questions? Okay, now this one here, some examples of secondary data. And now the other things about secondary data is basically about the advantages and also disadvantages of using the secondary data. Yes, Tracy, if I can share Tracy's comment, problem may have already been experienced by someone else. Yes, and therefore you also need to look at the accuracy of the data. You also need to look at the relevance of the data, of the secondary data. Okay, not all secondary data are insightful. Okay, so make sure that the ones that we are researching are basically relevant to the problem. Okay, otherwise we get something that is not helping us. Okay. Right, now the next one is primary data collection, which is basically the main topic of marketing research. Okay, and that is our market research. Okay. And look, in terms of market research, there are two main instruments, the questionnaires, and the other one is mechanical devices. Now, the questionnaire is quite popular. We use a brief questionnaire in the focus group discussion, for instance. We can also use that for our mail research, phone or online research. Okay, the mechanical one is basically for specific research, such as people meters, for instance, for media research that AC Nielsen Research Agency is conducting. Okay. And we can also look at the observation. We can also look at the types of marketing research. We have three types of marketing research: observational, survey, and also experimental. The observational is basically intended to observe the consumers in their natural environment. So we observe their behavior. Okay, we observe their behavior. Okay. And look, in one of my previous roles, you may find me a bit, nerdy for it, probably because at that time I spent about half an hour in one of the shopping mall in front of the biscuit aisle just to observe people, just to observe how people behave, and of course in a discreet way. Okay. Yes. Okay. Thanks, Tracy. So we are on the same track. Okay. We are on the same page. Okay. Well. What did I observe? Well, I observe how they interact. Okay. I observe whether they pick up the biscuit. How they pick up the biscuit at a time. They just pick up the biscuit and put it in the trolley or the basket, or do they read the packaging? Do they look at? Do they compare with the other things and what conversation they are making? Okay, so that one is observational. Okay, and the next one is, by the way, the observational is actually part of the qualitative technique. So the qualitative technique is actually conducted to help us understand the preliminary problem. Okay, And the next one is survey, which is basically measuring. Survey is quite good to measure people's opinion. Okay, how do you find this brand? How do you find the service? How do you find the overall satisfaction, and so on and so forth. Okay? And the next approach is experimental, where the purpose of doing experimental is to test the hypothesis. Let's say, if you're managing a chain restaurant, and we are introducing a new menu, for instance, for 2 restaurants, and we don't do that for the other restaurants, we can measure the impact of the new menu to our business, for instance. Okay, so that's experimental. So it's basically help us to test hypothesis, okay, to build theory. That's experimental. Okay. Okay, now this one here is quite critical as well. Guys, can I suggest we stop here and then we come back to the same spot by clicking the same link. I got feedback from Zoom that my 40 minutes is running out, and we'll be discussing the other elements of research after we'll discuss the consumer behavior. Okay, please allow a few minutes for me to transfer the data from Zoom. Okay.